special about this day?
I was born
Tell us more.
oh, 90 years ago on a hot summer evening, 12:30 in the afternoon. My mama said that it was so hot that you could actually fry an egg on the sidewalk. And I decided at that moment that I wanted to come into the world. So that made it special for her and my dad and grandmama and granddaddy, and made it special for me because I got a chance to see outside of that little cocoon that I was in.
Well, as I told you, we were going to take a walk through the decades, and I asked you to see if you could pick one word that captures each decade of these 90 years. So let's start with the first decade. What'd you come up with?
um, which would have been in the 30s, which is when I was born. Depression. Um, from what I vaguely remember and hearing my parents talk about, that was a pretty tough time, especially for farmers and coal miners. Very little work, very little food, very little anything actually. But I can remember my dad getting up around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, I assume, in the morning because I never saw him. It was dark, and he would be gone all day. And then maybe the next day or a couple of days later, around the same time, he would be coming in. And I remember seeing my mama so happy. And he would come in with what we call a croaker sack on his back. And in that bag, he had flour and sugar, bacon, syrup, all that kind of stuff. And Mama was real glad. And of course, we were glad too because she was happy. So that meant Mama was going to be making biscuits, and we would have some syrup and butter to go along with it. So that was a happy time um, for us as children. We were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. Mama and Daddy never let us know. They always Mama always made things happy for us. She could always find something to make a cake out of or something. So we didn't know we were poor.
Where were you living at that time?
Uh, as far back as I can remember, we were living in, let me see, Fireco, a little place called Fireco. It was Fireco, Lilybrook, all of these little places was together like a cocoon almost. So we were living there, and I remember that we were living up on the hill, and
This is West Virginia.
this was in West Virginia. We lived in several places in West Virginia because, like I said, Dad was a coal miner, and he went where the work was. Yeah.
Anything else about that decade?
Um, I remember Helen was. I don't remember when Helen was born, but I know all of a sudden she was there. I think like I went to sleep and woke up the next morning, and here was this person that was taking my space up in my mama's lap, you know. And later on in this same decade, I don't know a whole lot about Helen because I guess we were too close together in age. But then I remember my brother Robert Lee, which was the third child, first boy. Now I remember Mama being pregnant with him, although we didn't use the word pregnant, we didn't know what that was. But I remember Mama making baby clothes, but I thought she was making doll clothes. In fact, she told me that she was making doll clothes for me. And she was doing all these little cute little gowns and little blankets, and I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm gonna have a good time. But then one morning, like it always was morning time, I guess all this stuff happened at night, that I woke up and here this baby was, and he had on my doll baby clothes. And of course, needless to say, I was a little bit upset. And I asked my mama, why does this kid have on my doll baby clothes? And she said, well, Mildred, she talked real slow. Yes, Mildred, he came here and he didn't have any clothes. So I didn't think you would mind if I let him put your doll baby clothes on and wrap him in your baby blanket. So I kind of thought about it, and I agreed. Yeah, we couldn't have a baby going naked, I guess. But I really wasn't all that pleased because then that meant I didn't have anything for my doll baby. So that stood out. So that was in the 30s. World War II. I remember things being kind of tense. You see the coal miners; they would be like in little groups, and they would be talking. And Mama and some of her missionary friends, um, they was always so serious about something. And later on, I found out that they had declared war. That President Delano Roosevelt, that they had declared war. But from what I gather, this stuff was going on before, before the 40s. It must have been in the late 30s, like in 38 or 39 or something, because there was some stuff going on with Germany or somebody was acting up over there. And you hear little bits, because we didn't have a TV during that time. We had a radio. And but then all of a sudden they declared war, and I remember that it was really, this was a bad thing. I didn't know what a war was, but it was bad because Dad and them took it so serious. And some of the young men that I used to see, even though I was a kid, but everybody knew everybody, they disappeared. And now that I'm older, I know what was happening. They had been drafted, so they had gone off to work. And I kind of remember going off to the CC camp, which was under Roosevelt, because he created what they called the New Deal, where and his young men would go and work on the railroads and fix the roads and all that. So I was kind of used to seeing people disappear, but these men just was gone. And of course, now that I'm older, I know that it took time for them to go and be drafted and all the stuff that goes along with it. But I remember that, although nobody in my immediate family was drafted, because my brother, uh, two brothers, were just kids. And of course, we had the two girls, so we weren't worried about it. And Daddy was a coal miner, so he wasn't going to be drafted. And I had one uncle that lived there, and he was a coal miner, so he wasn't drafted. So it really didn't touch me, but being a sensitive child and picked up on other people's feelings, I knew something was going on, and it wasn't a good thing.
What do you recall seeing that made you aware something's going on? It's bigger than our family. It's bigger than our neighborhood. It's bigger.
I remember Mama going to the store and coming back, and she couldn't get sugar because the ration had started somewhere in that area, and then they had what they call ration stamps, ration books, and which was little coupons, and they gave you according to your size of your family. Well, of course, by that time there was Helen, Robert Lee, Willie James, I think, except. So there were four of us. So we got quite a few of those coupon books. And I remember Daddy and Mama sharing them with other neighbors who didn't have children, or maybe they only had one kid or something like that, because everything was rationed. You couldn't buy as much sugar as you wanted. You couldn't buy as much shortening as you wanted. You couldn't buy as much gasoline as you wanted. You had to have these coupons, these stamps, we call them, in order to, even though you may have the money, but without the stamps, you could only get a certain amount. So I remember Mom and them sharing that. Now, whether they sold them or not, I don't know. But I do know they did share them, because I know our next door neighbor that only had one child, that Mama used to share with her, and she would go to the store and get maybe 2 or 3 containers of shortening, and she would always give this lady one. So there was always the sharing going on in the community. So I remember that.